She wore kindness like armor, never knowing it would save more than just her own life. Maria Chen had always been invisible. At 43, she'd perfected the art of blending into the beige walls of the municipal building where she cleaned offices after everyone else went home. Her hands were rough from decades of scrubbing, her back permanently curved from bending over mops and buckets, but her eyesure eyes still held something gentle, something unbroken. Tonight, the November rain hammered against the windows as she pushed her cart down the empty corridor on the 7th floor. The fluorescent lights hummed their lonely song, and somewhere a faucet dripped its monotonous rhythm. She'd been doing this job for 17 years, ever since her husband died and left her with 2 kids to raise on her own. Now those kids were grown, moved away to chase dreams she'd made possible by working nights while they slept. She was just another shadow in the building's after hours, landscape someone people looked through rather than at. And that was fine with Maria. She'd learned long ago that quiet endurance was its own form of strength. As she turned the corner toward the executive offices, she noticed something unusual. The door to the finance director's office stood slightly ajar, a sliver of light cutting through the darkness. Maria paused, her heart quickening. In all her years, she'd never seen this. Door open after hours. The protocols were strict. Certain offices remained locked, accessible only to senior staff. She should have walked away, should have called building security, should have done anything except what she did next. But Maria heard something that stopped. Her coldest sound so quiet she almost missed it. Beneath the rain's assault, a sob raw and broken, muffled but unmistakable. Her mother's instincts, dormant but never dead, surged forward. She knocked gently on the door. "Hello? Is everything okay?" The sobbing stopped abruptly. Silence stretched like pulled taffy. "I'm just the cleaning lady," Maria added softly. "I heard someone crying. I wanted to make sure you're all right." More silence, then a voice thick with tears and something darker, hopelessness. "Please just go away." Maria recognized that voice, Thomas Brennan, the building's finance director. She'd seen him countless times, always in expensive suits, always moving with the confidence of someone who belonged in spaces she only occupied when they were empty. He'd never once acknowledged her presence. She should have left every rule of her employment, every instinct for self-preservation. Told her to walk away from whatever crisis was unfolding behind that door. Instead, she pushed it open. Thomas sat behind his massive mahogany desk, but he looked nothing like the polished executive she'd seen in passing. His tie hung loose. His hair was disheveled and his eyes were reed-rimmed and hollow. On the desk before him sat a bottle of pills half empty and a glass of water. "I said go away," he repeated. But there was no force behind the words, just exhaustion. Maria's blood ran cold as she understood what she was witnessing. She'd seen that look before, years ago, in her own bathroom mirror during the darkest months after her husband's death. She recognized the landscape of despair, knew its contours intimately. "Mr. Brennan," she said quietly, stepping into the office. "My name is Maria. I've been cleaning this building for 17 years. I've never once been in this office while you were here, but I'm here now and I'm not leaving." "You don't understand," Thomas said, his voice cracking. "You can't possibly understand. Try me." Something in her tone, not pity, not judgment, just solid presence, made him look up, really look at her for the first time. And maybe because she was a stranger, maybe because she was someone he'd never truly seen before, the dam broke. The words poured out in a torrent. The financial scandal that was about to break, the mistake he'd made, trusting the wrong people, signing off on investments that turned out to be a scheme, how his name would be on every headline by tomorrow morning, how he'd lose everything, his career, his reputation, probably his freedom, how he'd already lost his marriage last year, how his kids barely spoke to him, how there was nothing and no one left. "So you see," he finished, gesturing toward the pills, "this is the only way to stop it all, the only way to make the noise stop." Maria stood there, this woman who'd spent her life in the margins, and she felt something crystallize inside her. She thought about her own dark night 17 years ago, when grief had almost convinced her that her children would be better off without their broken mother. She thought about Mrs. Kim, her elderly neighbor who'd shown up at her door at 2 in the morning, somehow knowing, bringing soup and sitting in silence until the sun rose. She pulled up a chair, Mr. Brennan's expensive leather guest chair, and sat down. Like she belonged there. That's not the only way, she said. That's the permanent solution to a temporary problem. And Mr. Brennan, I know it doesn't feel temporary right now. I know it feels like you're drowning in the middle of the ocean with no land in sight. But I'm going to tell you what someone told me once. You can't see tomorrow if you don't survive today. You don't know what it's like. My husband died of a heart attack when my kids were 5 and 7. Maria interrupted, her voice steady. We had no savings. I had no degree. I worked 3 jobs for 2 years before I got this position. There were nights I couldn't afford both dinner and electricity. So we ate by candlelight, and I told my kids we were having an adventure. There was a night. I stood in my bathroom with a bottle of sleeping pills because I was so tired, so completely exhausted by the weight of just surviving. Thomas stared at her, really seeing her now. But you know what I learned? Maria continued. Rock bottom has a trap door, but it also has a foundation. You get to choose which one you go through. And yeah, you made mistakes. Yeah, you're going to face consequences. But consequences aren't death sentences unless you make them one. She reached across the desk and gently moved the pill bottle away from him. My daughter is a lawyer now. My son is a teacher. They're good people who do good things in this world. And they're only here because Mrs. Kim from apartment 3B showed up when I needed someone, and because I chose to see the foundation instead of the trap door. I don't have anyone, Thomas whispered. You have me. Right now, in this moment, you have me. Maria pulled out her ancient flip phone. And I'm going to call someone who can help you. A crisis counselor. They're going to talk to you. And then we're going to get you somewhere safe tonight. And tomorrow we'll figure out tomorrow. That's all you need to do, survive today. Thomas looked at her for a long moment. And she saw it. That flicker. That tiny spark of something that wasn't quite ready to give up. He nodded almost imperceptibly. Maria made the call. She stayed with him while they talked to the crisis counselor. She stayed while the counselor arranged for immediate support. She even rode with him to the emergency psychiatric facility, sitting in the back of the ambulance, holding the hand of a man who 12 hours ago wouldn't have held a door open for her. 3 months later, Maria was cleaning the 7th floor when she found an envelope taped to her cart. Inside was a letter written in careful handwriting. Dear Maria, you probably don't remember me. You're the woman who saves people every day just by showing up and being kind in a world that's forgotten how. I'm not okay yet, but I'm here. I'm facing my consequences, but I'm doing it alive. And that's because you saw me when I'd become invisible even to myself. My counselor says that kindness is a form of activism, that small acts of humanity are revolutionary in a society that teaches us to look away. You taught me that we're only invisible if we choose to be. I'm taking responsibility, making amends where I can, and trying to learn how to be the kind of person who shows up for others the way you showed up for me. I named you as my hero in group therapy yesterday. They asked me to describe you, and I realized I couldn't remember what you looked like in that office. I just remembered that you felt like hope. Thank you for being my Mrs. Kim. I'm trying to be someone else's now. With eternal gratitude, Thomas. Maria read the letter 3 times, her eyes blurring with tears. Then she folded it carefully and put it in her pocket, next to her heart. She picked up her mop and continued down the hallway. This woman who was never invisible at all. She was just waiting for someone to see that kindness doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It shows up with a mop and bucket at the exact right moment, wearing the face of an ordinary woman who understands that saving someone's life sometimes looks like just showing up and refusing to leave.